To download and install ExamView, what you'll first want to do is go to www.norton.com/instructors and navigate to your textbooks by discipline using the left-hand navigation. Now I'm here there now at our We the People instructor site. So I'm going to scroll down until I find the test bank section. So I'm looking for the test bank header. And underneath that, you'll notice that there will be two different options for you to choose from. Actually, there are a lot of options here. The one we're concerned with is the ExamView 8.1 Assessment Suite, and one says Win, and then the other one has ExamView 8.1 Assessment Suite Mac. If you're on a PC, that is a Windows-based machine, an operating system, you're going to download this file. If you're using a Macintosh, you can download this file. If you use a Windows machine at school and then at home you use a Macintosh, that's fine too. You can have both of these install files on either of those computers if you're an instructor. So because I'm running this on a Mac, I'm going to click on the Access resource for the Mac. And you'll notice that it'll prompt me to sign in before I can do anything at all. So the first step is to sign in. Now, if you don't already have an instructor account, what you'll want to do is click the Sign In or Create a New Account link here. You can create your instructor account. Once you receive your credentials, you'll then be able to come back to this page and sign in like I will do just now. You'll see how that works. And now we are placed back on the original page, and you can see that now I can download this file. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. I can right-click it if I want to save it to my desktop. You can do this on a PC as well. And this will just allow you to place it in a location where you can easily find it later. It is about a 56 megabyte file, downloads very, very quickly, and it's already done. So I'm going to go ahead now and just move over here so you can see the file that I just downloaded. So what this is just like any program that you download, but in addition to having the ExamView software, it's also going to include all of the test banks. So once we install the program, all of the test banks we need from We the People will be available to me. So from here, it's actually a really simple process of double-clicking on the file. That will launch the installation. And it'll be, it might be slightly different if you're on a PC, but essentially what you're looking for is the installer file. I believe on a PC it'll say something to the effect of installerfile.exe. On a PC it's a package file, but you simply want to double-click on that install file to begin the installation process. So what we'll be installing is the ExamView assessment software. In addition to that, I'm going to be installing the test banks for, in this case, We the People. So I'll just click continue, continue again. It'll ask me if I'd like to agree to its conditions. I'm going to say yes. I'll go ahead and log in. And nothing really different about any sort of software installation that you've probably worked with in the past. The installation file is going to run, and once it fully installs itself on the computer, I'll then be able to launch it and start creating an assessment. Now very quickly what I'll do, just so I can show you some of the functionality of the program, is create an assessment, and then I'm going to take that assessment and I'm going to export it. I can export it to a number of different formats, including a PDF file, a Word file, which I can use later, but I can also export it to a Blackboard file, and if you happen to be running learning management systems like D2L and Moodle or Canvas, that Blackboard file can also be read by those systems as well. Now, what is useful is that if you can quickly create an assessment using some fairly powerful features within ExamView, and then you can export that assessment easily into your LMS. Most LMSs do a really good job of deploying assessment. It can be a challenge to create that assessment, and that's where ExamView comes in. It makes that process, because it's running on your computer and because it has some powerful, very easy, intuitive features, it makes that process of creating assessment easy, and you can install it into your LMS system and deploy it to your students without a lot of work, and use the powerful features of your LMS to deploy and track and make sure that that assessment is being graded and going into your gradebook. So you're essentially using two very powerful tools in concert together. And that's what we're going to be doing next as soon as this installation file completes. Now, this can take some time the first time you install ExamView. Don't be alarmed. If you need to go grab yourself a cup of coffee and wait for ExamView to do its work, feel free to do that. And I'm just going to take a short break, and when I come back, we'll begin the process of creating an assessment. So now that I've installed ExamView, it's ready for me to launch. You either want to go to your computer and click in the correct directory, or more likely what you'll do is you'll look on your computer desktop for an icon that looks something like this. Now, when ExamView installs itself, it actually installs 3 different programs. One you'll never use. Another program is for editing the test bank questions themselves, sort of the template version of the questions. You'll very rarely use that. What you're looking for is the ExamView test generator icon, and most likely, if you're on a PC, it's been placed on your desktop. You can search for this if you're on a Mac. If you can't find the icon, you can search using your hourglass feature. Just search for ExamView test generator. At any rate, the icon will look something like that. So go ahead and click that icon, as I will do here on my Mac, to launch the program. And the first thing you'll see is something like this. This is the testing canvas. Now, I can create an assessment in a variety of different ways. I can use the wizard, which is a way to very, very quickly create an assessment. That's what I'll do. I can also simply create a new test, and that's going to allow me to create a test from scratch, looking at individual questions and adding them as I see fit. Or I can open an existing assessment. That's something I can do as well. For the purposes of this demonstration, however, I'm going to go to the File menu and I'm going to click Quick Test Wizard. And once I do that, it's going to ask me for a test title. I'm going to keep this really simple, so I'm going to call this Sample Midterm. And I'll click the Next button. And you will only have one directory most likely one directory to be looking at. I'm going to click on the We the People test bank. And as you can see here, I can now select chapters 1 through 5. So say I'm creating an assessment of some kind that covers just these 5 chapters. If I want to skip a chapter, I can do that by holding down the Shift key or the Command key on a Mac. Now I can shift through a number of different test banks. When I'm happy with the selections that I've made, I'll click Select. And it tells me there are 7 question banks selected, and there's a total of 623 questions that I can draw from in those 7 question banks. So I'll click Next, and here is where I will make my decisions about the types of questions that I want to include in my assessment. Now again, you can build your assessment from scratch, question by question, that's fine. I'm using the quick test tool just so you can see how you can very quickly create a skeleton of your final assessment. And so I'm going to say I want at least 100 questions, maybe 3 essay questions, and then I'll click Next. And then I'll click Finish, and the test is going to be built. This is really where ExamView excels over the learning management systems that are out there. So you can see how quickly I can just put together these questions. I can see the questions immediately. If I double click on a question, I can go into a preview and editing pane and make changes. I can change the answer, I can change the wording of the question, I can add additional question choices if I like. Something very, very quick. Now, if you aren't exporting to a learning management system, again, you want to print this out and deliver it to your students the old-fashioned way, ExamView excels at that as well. You'll see if I scroll down to the bottom of the page here, that we've coded the answer key with a lot of different information. We call this metadata. So for every single question, we're thinking about how difficult is this question? What is it referencing with respect to the book? What exact objective is being covered? And with respect to Bloom's taxonomy, what type of question is this? Now the reason that this is significant is because I can use ExamView's filtering tools to find questions that match a very particular criteria. So if I want to further refine this assessment, let's say I did a quick scan of those 100 questions and felt that there just wasn't enough hard questions, or difficult questions, I can do a search to find those questions very quickly. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. So we have an answer key. I can print this out as is. Another nice feature of ExamView, if I do decide to print this, I can create multiple versions very quickly. So I can say, ExamView, print me out 4 different versions. I'd like you to scramble the sections, the questions, and the multiple choice responses. And again, now you have 4 different tests with 4 different answer keys that you aren't going to have to cut and paste to create. ExamView will save you a lot of time. It'll save you a lot of time if you're going to export to a learning management system, as I hinted at before. But before we do that, I just want to show a few more features. If I go up to the top menu, I can select on Question and New, and I can choose a multitude of different types of questions. These would be templates, so multiple choice, matching, short answer. I can build those from scratch, so I can easily add my own questions. Now, you can also add all types of things to the question itself. So if I wanted to import an image, I can do that. If I want to bring in, say, an image from a PowerPoint or an image that I find online, you can even rather quickly create links. So if you are exporting this out to Learning Management System, you can insert a hyperlink that will link out. So you won't even have to build that link within the Learning Management System. You can do everything from within the ExamView environment. So again, a very powerful assessment tool. One final feature that I always show off is the selecting by criteria feature. So what this allows me to do is pick, say, for this example, I'll select the first 5 chapters. I'll click select and then next. So I can say, in those 5 chapters, I looked over the test and I just felt it wasn't quite challenging enough for those first 5 chapters. I want to see the difficult type questions that match. There are many criteria to choose from. I'm going to choose Bloom's taxonomy. I'm going to look at all the remembering type questions that match that criteria. So in a second, ExamView has looked at those 7 or 8 test banks, and it looked first at all the difficult type questions, then it's looked at all the remembering type questions, and it's filtered those down for you. So if I click on the Select While Viewing link, I can then just navigate through those chapters and locate very quickly the questions that match that criteria. After I've made my selections, I can then checkbox them to add them to the assessment, click OK, and the test will be rebuilt with those questions added. You can see how this will speed the process by which you are able to refine and create and perfect your assessment, that matching up with very particular criteria, and many of those criteria are keyed to the textbook itself. Very, very helpful. A lot of work has gone into the test bank, not just in writing those questions, getting them into the ExamView system, but in producing all of that metadata and keying it into the system as well. There's a lot going on in the background that will be helpful. But we're not done yet. So the final step is perhaps to export this as a Word document. I can do that. I might want to save it. I can export to, say, a rich text format, and that's going to be something that will be readable and open. You can open it within any word processing program. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to export it to Blackboard. And I'm going to choose Blackboard 7.1 to 9.0. And when I do that, what that's essentially going to mean is that this is going to create a file that can be imported not just into Blackboard, but also into Instructure's Canvas. It can be imported into Desire to Learn. It can be imported into your Moodle course. And I have a number of different videos that will walk you through that import process. Today I'm just going to look primarily at Blackboard, so we're going to save and export this into the Blackboard format, and then I'm going to import it into a Blackboard course. But just know that when you export to Blackboard 7.1 to 9.0 with an ExamView, it creates a universal file which can then be imported into all of the major learning management systems. So I have this assessment, it's ready to go. I've perfected the questions that I want to be on that assessment, and I've added a few of my own. I'm going to, again, rename this, and just as a little pro tip, I always give my file a name beginning with a number, and that's so I can easily find it later when I'm searching for it on my desktop. So I put 01, and I'm just going to call this midterm 2015 spring, and I'm going to save that to my desktop, and then I'll click export. Now I want to give it some information here. This is what your students are going to read, so you want to be very descriptive. Again, just so I can find it later easily, I'm going to type 01, and I'll call this midterm 2015 ExamView demonstration with Norton. And then I can provide a description. Again, that will also transfer over, so your students will be able to read that. And then for the directory name, I'm just going to type exams. I will click OK, and the test will be exported. The next step is to import this and then deploy it within the Blackboard environment, and that's what we're going to look at next. So here we are within a Blackboard course, and what I'm going to do first, before I begin the import process, and you don't have to do this is just something that I'm going to do for my personal organizational preference, is create a content area where I'm going to place all of my exams. And we'll come back to this in a moment. So I'm going to click on content area and create this new content area by clicking on the plus icon right up here and then selecting content area. I'm just going to call this exams. So this is going to make it very easy for my students to find exams later. And I want to make that available to users, so I'll select the checkbox there and I'll click submit. So then that I'm just going to bring that up and place that there again, that's so students can find that easy. So this is where we're going to deploy the exam after we've imported it. So after I've created the content area, and you can create that anywhere that you'd like, I'm going to come down to the course tools in the left-hand navigation under course management of the Blackboard course, and I'm going to scroll down till I find test surveys and pools, and I'll just click on test surveys and pools. Now here what I want to do is select on tests. And after that, what I want to do is click on import test. And now I simply want to browse my computer for the file that we just exported a moment ago. So I'll click on Browse My Computer, and notice if I go to my desktop, there it is right at the top. I know exactly where it is because I created a number right before when I named the file. So you see how easy it is to find these files again. If you put a number right before the name of the file, and I'll select on that, and there it is. So Blackboard has made it very, very easy to import assessments that you create in ExamView. Essentially click on Import Test, search for it, and then I will click on Submit, and that assessment is going to be uploaded and interpreted by Blackboard, as you can see, very, very quickly. I'll click OK, and you can see that the file right at the top is there. Again, this is why I created a number right before, so it comes right to the top and I can find it later. Now, this is just the first step. Notice that it hasn't been deployed, so the first of two steps. We've imported it, now we need to deploy it. And this is why I created a content area called exam. So if I select on that, and I come to this blank area, I can now add the exam. So to add the exam, what I'll want to do is I'll select on assessment, and then I'm going to click on test, which is Blackboard code for anything that's an assessment that can be passed to the gradebook. So select, and you'll see that my test that I created is ready to be deployed. So I simply then want to select on it and click Submit. Now when I do that, Blackboard will have one final step for me, and that step is to indicate how I want students to engage with this question, or with this assessment that I created. The first thing I might want to do is just give it a name. So I'm going to take that 01 away, and I'm just going to call this now Midterm 2015, and I can provide my description if I haven't done so already. I want my assessment to allow students to try twice. So I'm going to give them 2 attempts, and I'm going to take the last graded attempt I don't like that. I want the highest grade to be selected. I want to force students to take the assessment all at once. They can't come back, save their work, come back later. Maybe I set a timer for it. I know when this assessment needs to be deployed, and I also know that students should only have about 12 hours to work on it. So if I like, I can control the deployment settings. If you have your schedule already prepared, this would be a good time to get those settings in there. What this means, if you select the display after and display until, is that this assessment won't be available to students until the hour and the minute that you indicate, and it will disappear as an option for the student to take if you set the display until settings. When the assessment is available to students, they will receive a notice of that in their calendar. And of course, you created a content area so they know where to go to find it if there's any concerns. You can create a password. We can set a due date. We can control the assessment options. I'm not going to do any of those things. I do want to make sure that when after the assessment is submitted, that students see the submitted answer, but not the correct answer. And then I'm going to say, after the due date, I then want the students to see the correct answers. So what I'm doing here is I'm making sure that students can't see the right answers until after the due date has passed. And that's going to prevent students from trying the test maybe a multitude of times, seeing what the right answer is, and sharing those responses with their fellow students. Finally, I'm going to randomize the questions, and this truly is a remarkable feature because what this means is that of these 100 questions, for every single student, they'll get a different version of the assessment. So every single student will have a different version. We changed the deployment feature so that they have to take it all at once. Perhaps we've set a timer. We're making it very difficult for students to collaborate in or cheat on the assessment. We've made it difficult, not impossible, but difficult, using some of the powerful deployment features of Blackboard. This is truly what Blackboard and other LMSs excel at. I'll now click the Submit button, and that test will then be deployed at the appropriate hour and minute that I selected in the previous screen. Now, if you want to see just for sure that the questions that you create in ExamView are actually in the environment that we see here, the ExamView environment, I'm just going to select on midterm 2015, and we're going to go ahead and click Begin. And when the next page loads, you'll see those questions that are selected here are the very questions that we selected within the ExamView environment. And there they all are. So again, very, very quickly, that was essentially both how to download and install and create an assessment in ExamView, and then we explored how to explore that assessment into the Blackboard environment. We then went into Blackboard and we installed that assessment. We uploaded it, imported it, and then we deployed it to our students. And it didn't take a whole lot of time for us to do that. So I hope you found this useful, and if you need some additional instructions on how to access a Blackboard course pack by Norton, or if you have additional questions about how ExamView works, feel free to reach out to your local Norton representative and we'll provide you that assistance. Thanks.